Welcome back, guys and gals. JJ here once again from schooltrade.com. Great to be back here with you guys and gals. Today's trading psychology question of the day. Great question. What's the most effective way to break a bad trading habit? He says, I'm working from a trading firm and they have strict rules on risk management. And he says, I've learned the rules, but I can't seem to stop making mistakes because of some bad habits that I learned when I was trading on my own at the beginning of my career. He says, I need to correct these bad habits or I'm going to lose this job, right? And I might not be able to get it again. Any advice on breaking a bad trading habit? Great question. And I can definitely help with a strategy to break these bad habits. I think I could write a book on bad habits, and I think I have an effective way of breaking them down and solving them for you this afternoon. Now, my favorite trading habits would be chasing trades because of the fear of missing out, manufacturing trades because I couldn't stay patient, cutting winning trades too early, letting losses get too large, adding to a losing position, earning profits in the morning and then giving them back in the afternoon because of the Superman syndrome, risking too much money for my account size, revenge trading after a loss. As you can see, I could write the book on bad habits, and if we want to break those bad habits, we need to first understand them a little bit better. So what is a habit and why are they bad? Why does it make it a bad habit? Well, I think of a habit as some action I've taken in the past which worked to solve a problem in the past, and now my brain thinks it's acceptable to use that for all relevant situations in the future. In other words, if it worked in the past, our brain's going to try to use it again in the future to solve similar problems. Now, we start running into problems, however, though, when our brain gets lazy and thinks it can solve all the problems in our life with the same actions. You know, our brain is always trying to save energy, and it uses these habits, right, to do that for situations it deals with most commonly. You know, take, for example, a child who has a temper tantrum, right, when he or she doesn't get what they want. If the child's parents give into the temper tantrum, the child gets what he or she wants and then ends up growing up to be an adult, right? And the brain assumes that throwing the same temper tantrum will solve the same problems with other adults. I'm sure you probably know a few adults like this or children that look like adults. As you can imagine, the habit that was developed as a child doesn't work as an adult, right? And it begins causing problems with relationships, work, etc., etc. You know, I remember one time early in my career that rather than taking a loss on a trade, I decided, like a lot of new traders do, to add to that losing position, right? Hoping that the market would come back to my point of entry, which it finally did, and I actually ended up making a profit on the trade. That was a good result on that trade, but the problem was I tried the same technique the very next day and I almost lost my entire account. As it turns out, the market doesn't always come back to your point of entry, right? No matter how much you keep buying into a losing trade, right? Lesson learned. And I was fortunate to never make that bad decision again. This is one of the reasons why day trading is so hard. You can literally make a horrible decision, like adding to a losing position or chasing after a trade you've already missed. But of course, by the stroke of luck, you can make money at the same time. The downside of this is, right, you may have been given a lucky bounce on that first mistake that you made. You may have made money on that first mistake, right, got rewarded for that mistake, but the markets will most likely teach you the real lesson, right, later on in your career, and you'll have a lot more at risk, right, the next time that pendulum swings back the other way. You know, I remember having the best day of my trading career and then losing twice as much money only 24 hours later. I made money with a bad habit on a Thursday morning, right? Made a bunch of money on a Thursday, and then it took it all back plus some, blew my account on Friday afternoon. Same thing. Bad habit made me money in the beginning, right? Bad habit took it all back in the end. So now that we know what now that we know what habits are, and how easy it is to develop these bad habits and why trading is so difficult, because it's easy to make money basically by sheer luck, unknowingly building the habits that will eventually be our unraveling in the future, right? So let's talk about breaking those bad habits. I like to think of a habit like a series of dominoes, right? Series of dominoes lined up. Okay, once that first domino is triggered, right, it triggers all the other dominoes and basically sets off a series of decisions that ultimately help or hurt you. So for example, if I take a trade and that trade goes against me, the first domino falls. and I have to make the decision what to do next. If I make the decision to move my stop loss back further, then the next domino falls. Then I decide to double down on my losing position, right? I add to my position. The next domino falls. Before long, right, one decision led to a series of bad decisions based on actions that probably worked at some point in the past, but now I'm on the verge of losing all the money in my account, updating my resume, and going back to finding a 9-to-5 job. Now, if you're a trader, you know these series of events. You've probably already seen how easy it is for that first domino to get toppled, and all of a sudden, right, those bad decisions that follow. So if we want to remove the bad habits, we need to replace them, at least in my opinion, with good habits. In other words, we need to create a different set of dominoes, a different set of decisions. So let's do that. Let's create a new series of dominoes or a new series of decisions. You know, this reminds me of a client that I worked with quite a few years ago, actually, towards the beginning of my career here at School of Trade. He had a horrible problem with making decisions when money was at risk, like a lot of us do. He would freeze up, became paralyzed with fear, and lost a lot of money in the process, right? Couldn't get out of bad trades, right? He would get out so quickly out of good trades. And my advice to him was, don't think so much, right? Don't think so much. You have a plan. I gave you a copy of my trading plan. It's filled with specific rules. You know what to do in these situations. All you have to do is execute that plan. In other words, I provided him with a copy of my trading plan. All he needed to do was follow the specific rules. I gave him that first domino. All he had to do when he found himself in a trade, was it a winning trade or a losing trade? Hit that next domino, right? We already had that series of dominoes in place, and all he needed to do was knock down that first domino and execute the plan from there. Remember though, right? It's hard to make correct decisions when you're in the heat of the moment. When there's money on the line, it's difficult to trust your instincts. This is why having a clear set of rules is so important. So the next time a trade goes against you, you need to have a series of decisions that have already been made beforehand. You need a game plan to get you through the hardest parts of your trading day. And speaking of the game plan, don't change the plan during the game. Don't change the game plan during the game. You know, I want to point out a very important topic, and that is you cannot change the game plan during the game. You know, you're going to hear, if you're in my trading with me, you probably have heard me say this before. You don't change the game plan during the game. If you want to make changes, finish the game you're trading, finish the game you started, make your changes, and then start a new game afterwards, right? I say this because, again, as I mentioned a lot in these videos, you can't trust your instincts during the trading day. And you certainly can't trust your instincts, right, or those habits that you've built up, right, to make the right decision for your trading career when there's money on the line. Right? When the opening bell rings, your job is to execute the plan. When something goes wrong, you need to have a plan in place to deal with the decisions that come with it. You need that series of dominoes. So, for example, what are you going to do if the trade goes against you, right? What do you do if the trade goes right towards your first target? How many losses are you willing to take any given day, right? How many winning trades do you stop today? These are the types of pre-decisions, right, that you've got to create that series of dominoes for. Now, my job every morning is to follow the plan that I already have defined, not to make up the plan as I go, right? At the end of the day, if I want to make changes to my game plan, I update my journal, I read my journal, and I make educated decisions, not emotional decisions, so that when I get back to trading tomorrow, I have a new game plan in place, right? So don't be trying to change the game plan during the game. Why? Because you can't trust what's in your head, right? You can't trust those instincts. Okay, so recapping here, how do you break a bad habit? You replace them with good habits. How do you replace them with good habits? By having important decisions already made for you, because you can't trust yourself when there's money on the line. You need a trading plan with specific rules that cover all possible scenarios for that trading day. This is not easy. But if you're working with a trading firm, right, like the question said, if you're working for a firm, I can almost guarantee, or I assume at least, they have all these rules for you, right? So use them. Or if you're working with someone like me, I'll provide you with all of those rules, right? And of course, if you're trying to do this alone, may the markets have mercy on your soul. If you're going at it alone as someone who is self-taught as a trader, it can be done, but it takes a lot of time, right? It'll be slow. It'll be slow and steady. But you have your work cut out for you to do this step by step now and formulate those rules. Boy, what a great lesson today. We all have bad habits to break. And now you have a deeper understanding what creates those bad habits. And by understanding that, create those new habits, right? By formulating a series of decisions that eventually will say goodbye to those bad habits and create those good habits, right? Those productive habits. Guys, I hope you found a ton of value in today's psychology lesson, and I would love to hear from you about additional topics you might be struggling with as traders. Do me a favor, drop me a comment below the video with any topics you'd like to see me cover in my next psychology video. Make sure to give me a thumbs up if you found value today, and please, please, please make sure you share this with a friend who can benefit from this information as well. You know, it doesn't matter what market we trade or what strategy we use, even the best traders battle with their emotions when there's money on the line. And don't forget, you can find me every morning at 8 o'clock Eastern time in my trade room here at School of Trade. I get a great free trial on the homepage at schooloftrade.com. I send out my nightly newsletter every evening before 8 p.m., and I'm excited to see you guys on the next psychology lesson. My name is Joseph James. Be well out there. Be nice to each other, will ya? And be here next time. Adios, amigos. Bye-bye for now.